Hey guys, Drifter here. Welcome to Modern Warfare Remastered In Depth. In today's episode, we're going to be reviewing the M60 E4, otherwise known as the gun of Rambo. And I gotta let you know, he probably dumped a whole 100 rounds in that movie because he couldn't see a damn thing he was aiming at. This gun has some of the worst iron sights in the game, which we'll talk about later, but it does have a solid fan club. There is a group of players that really do like using the M60, most notably because it has extremely high damage. It'll deal 50 damage up close, and then they decrease down to 40 at a distance, meaning it will take 2 or 3 shots to kill, depending on how far away you are, which is very high for a light machine gun. I want to be very clear that it can get 2-shot kills even without stopping power, which is rare for Modern Warfare Remastered. And the maximum 2-shot range without stopping power is about 25 meters, which is about half of that of the 2-shot ranges of assault rifles that do have stopping power. It's better than you think, but not quite good enough to cross-map people. Once it drops down to 3 shots to kill, it kind of gets frustrating, so even though it may seem somewhat inefficient, I often run stopping power on it because the stopping power damage is 70 up close and it'll decrease down to 56 at long ranges, meaning that it will take 2 shots to kill, which is absurdly high. And if you get a headshot, it'll deal 1.4x damage. They're only useful without stopping power and at long ranges if you want to reduce your shots to kill. However, if your enemy is even slightly damaged, it'll still deal 98 damage. So if they've taken a flashbang or two, if they've been nicked just a little bit, you can get a couple of one-shot headshots. I find that to be more fluky than anything, somewhat unreliable. You really have to know the situation to want to go for the headshots, but it is possible to do. Generally speaking, I avoid them. Rate of fire is very slow at 600 rounds per minute. This is typically what we see in modern Call of Duty games when it comes to light machine gun rates of fire, and they're really not designed to shoot super fast. Overall, when you combine the absurdly high damage with the slow rate of fire, we get a fairly average time to kill, fairly moderate time to kill. Even with stopping power, it's still pretty average to moderate in its time to kill. It's not great, but it's certainly not bad. You definitely can use it, and you definitely can surprise people. One of the major downsides, like most light machine guns, is that the reload time is extremely high at 7.13 seconds. That just means that's a ton of downtime for you. You could probably capture a whole flag while you're reloading this gun. Thankfully, though, the magazine size is 100, and if it's only going to take 2 or 3 shots to kill, depending on if you're running stopping power or not, you really should not have to reload very often. A matter of fact, most of the times I got my best clips never reloading this gun. The base movement speed is 87.5%, and strafing speed is 35%. Like the other light machine guns, your mobility is extremely limited. It probably is going to feel even worse on this one because the animations are designed to be slower, and it's a big bulky gun, so you get all the sort of visual impact of that bulkiness, whereas you don't feel it as much with the M249 and the RPD, but they perform exactly the same. Like the other guns, the M60 has very low idle sway, or the other LMGs I should say. The idle sway makes it to where you don't have to struggle to acquire targets at long ranges, to where your sights won't drift around, to where as long as you put the sight on people, they are going to die. Unfortunately though, the recoil is fairly high. I can handle it only in small bursts. Of bursts in 2 and 3, it is surprisingly effective. Sometimes at even 1 burst that I'm just kind of a wiener when it comes to this gun. However, full auto is not recommended. The M60 is best used in very short bursts and used to pick off people a lot like an RPD or a lot like a DMR. Once you forget that this is not a great full auto LMG and go to spraying people, that's when you're going to die. And most of the time, that's when you see me die in this video, is when I forget that it's not a full auto gun and I just try to full auto people and it doesn't work very well. One of the things that can work is getting 2-shot kills with hip fire. It's nice. Sometimes you're close enough to people to get the guaranteed hits, but it is a little bit fluky and the gun does fire a little bit slow, so it's not a great strategy. You're not going to be able to do it quite as well as the RPD or the SAW, but since it can 2-hit, I would say that going for hip fire is valid. Unlike most of the other weapons, adding an ACOG sight actually doesn't hurt the M60 at all. It doesn't change the recoil. It actually makes your ADS time a little bit better and actually decreases your idle sway, even though it may not feel like it. But I just don't like the ACOG sight. I don't like the way it looks and the way it moves and the way it handles. That's a personal thing. But for those of you that do enjoy the ACOG sight, the M60 is a great weapon to add it on. Alright, now we're hitting the part that I just couldn't wait to complain about. The iron sights are quite possibly the worst in any Call of Duty game, maybe the worst ever. They're definitely the worst in MWR. I think maybe some of the only other games that had worse iron sights were other versions of the M60. They are very obstructive. They often block the targets you want to see. When you have vertical recoil, it kicks up directly into this bar that blocks everything. The part where you aim, the little foresight that sticks up and is pointy, isn't that bad for acquiring the target at all, but once you start shooting, it's pretty miserable. When I use this, I feel like I'm LeVar Burton on the Starship Enterprise and I can't see shit. That's just how I feel. I don't know how you feel about it, but I would recommend not using them most of the time. Foregrip is a nice attachment. It reduces your recoil significantly. I managed to get some good gameplay with the foregrip in this episode, but overall, if I had to load out, I would almost certainly load out with a red dot sight because I just can't stand not being able to see what I'm shooting at. When it comes right down to it, the M60 is the worst light machine gun in Modern Warfare Remastered, and it has to be treated like a DMR to even be useful. If you treat this kind of like a full auto M14 and try and get like 2 and 3 shot picks at long ranges and you just do it in very small bursts or one shots, it can be very effective because it's got an infinite 2-shot kill range, a huge magazine, you can continually pepper a location, but once you go full auto, the recoil is going to be too difficult to control and it's going to be a very terrible weapon. The best way to use it is with red dot sight, deep impact, and I think it is actually valid to use either with stopping power or with Juggernaut. You want to use stopping power if you want to get the picks, and Juggernaut in close quarters combat, because if you're doing super close quarters like, say, Vacant, and you run Juggernaut, you're mostly going to be in the range to get 2-shot kills anyway, and the Juggernaut just gives you bonus health. So small maps Juggernaut, big maps stopping power. Guys, that's all for this short episode of In Depth. I hope you learned something useful. If you did, don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. Drifter out.